The story kicks off with a massive battle where the conqueror, Lufus Mephial, is fighting a group called the Heroes. She's shouting about how she'll become strong enough to eradicate all the inequality and injustice in the world. The heroes think they've got her cornered, telling her she's finished, but Lufus just laughs and says they're the ones who are finished. She reveals she's not done yet, and the heroes freak out when they realize she was taking their attacks on purpose to activate her climax skill. She unleashes Subspace Seal, and as she's defeated, a voice congratulates the heroes and tells them now they can go fight the Devil King, Orm. We then switch to the player behind Lufus, who thinks this was an awesome way to end the game. He's super satisfied with how it all played out and has no regrets. But then a strange message appears on his screen from someone named Alovinus, the goddess of all creation. The player immediately recognizes her as the creator goddess from the game's lore and figures the game company must be stepping in because his character, Lufus, had become such a massive, unofficial final boss. The message asks him, "Will you accept tea?" And without a second thought, he clicks yes, ready for whatever new role they have planned for him. Suddenly, everything changes. He's in a new place, and people are yelling that the summoning worked, but they didn't get the hero. He's totally confused, asking where he is and wondering if it's a prank. Then he looks down and sees he has a female body with giant boobs, and he feels wings on his back. He has a full-blown panic attack when he realizes he has become his character, Lufus. He remembers spending hours in character creation just because he thought watching a cute girl would be more motivating, but he never wanted to be her. He wonders if he's dreaming or if he got sucked into the game world, which is something he thought only happened in manga. He decides he needs to get information fast, so he tries to ask the people around what's happening. But when he opens his mouth, the haughty, commanding voice of Lufus comes out instead, asking them to explain the situation. The player is horrified. He didn't mean to say that. His role-playing persona has completely taken over his speech. To make things worse, he feels an intense pressure in the air and realizes Lufus's racial skill, pressure, must be active, which is terrifying everyone around him. He mentally screams at his own power to calm down and stop the skill. After a tense moment, the pressure finally disappears. The summoners, able to breathe again, are now certain they have resurrected the legendary conqueror. Lufus, with the player having a bit more control now, singles out an elf and commands her to explain everything. The elf tells her that 200 years have passed since she was sealed away. The Devil King is still alive, and they were trying to summon a hero with a spell called Excate, but Lufus appeared instead. The player is processing all of this. He's really in the game world, 200 years in the future from the timeline he knew. He thinks it's wild that the Excate spell is a real thing, since it was just a piece of lore that gave the game its name. Seeing how scared everyone is, he decides it's best to leave. Speaking as Lufus, he announces that he has no intention of conquering the world again and was satisfied with his defeat. He tells them to forget about him and go summon another hero. With that, he takes off into the sky, discovering that he instinctively knows how to fly with his new wings. Once he's alone, the player is actually bursting with excitement. He thinks this is the coolest thing ever. Like a wild last boss has just appeared in the world. As a gamer, he can't imagine anything more fun than exploring his favorite game world as his max-level character. He decides finding a way back home can wait. He spots a familiar landmark, the Sky Tower of Mafal, his old base from the game, and flies towards it. Seeing it in person feels strangely nostalgic, and he gets a flash of a memory of him and his friends, other players, celebrating their victories there. Inside, a woman greets him with tears in her eyes, calling him Mistress Lufus and saying she's been waiting for 200 years. The player has no idea who she is, which completely crushes her. She introduces herself as Dina, his loyal advisor. It takes him a second, but then he remembers creating a random background NPC named Dina to act as set dressing for the base. He's shocked. A simple NPC gained self-awareness and waited for him for 2 centuries. This confirms it. He's not in the game anymore, but a real world based on it. Lufus quickly covers for her mistake, praising Dina for her unwavering loyalty, which makes Dina overjoyed. Dina then fills him in on the state of the world. The 7 heroes who defeated him went on to found their own nations. 4 have died of old age, but 3 with longer lifespans are still alive. The player wonders if they might be other players like him. Dina also reveals that the Devil King is still around because he completely wiped the floor with the so-called 7 heroes. Then she brings up the 12 heavenly stars, which were Lufus's elite companion monster, NPCs that the player collected. He remembers creating them because he thought a final boss should have cool generals. Dina knows where 6 of them are, but she has bad news. 2 of them join the Devil King's army to get revenge on the humans for Lufus's defeat. Lufus is furious, calling their actions disgraceful and declaring they need a good reaming out. This gives the player a new purpose. He'll travel the world, gather the scattered 12 heavenly stars, and check out those remaining heroes. Dina tells him the closest star is Ares the Ram, who is holed up in a volcano near the city of Svel. Conveniently, one of the 7 heroes, Magrez, also lives in Svel. As Lufus prepares to leave, Dina stops her and asks if she has any money. Lufus has none, and Dina admits she's also broke after 200 years of waiting. They need to earn cash, but Dina says it's going to be hard because Lufus is incredibly famous, and her black wings are considered a symbol of evil. The player thinks black wings are pretty generic, but Dina insists they are not common at all. Her solution is for them to become adventurers, a job where your background doesn't matter. They head to a nearby city and find the Adventurers Guild. Lufus has to wear a cloak to hide her identity. Inside, she feels a sense of nostalgia, as she used to be an adventurer in the game before becoming the Conqueror. They check the quest board and decide to take on an orc extermination job for 1500 L. The player remembers farming orcs, or pork bowls as he called them, for a rare item that raised max HP. They go to the client's village, where the people are desperate. They tell Lufus the orcs have been killing their men and kidnapping their women, begging her for help. Lufus calmly assures them that the matter is settled. On the way to the orc's den, the player checks his stats and is relieved to see he's still max level with all his abilities. Now he faces the real test. Can he actually bring himself to kill a living thing? When the orcs attack, he uses his alchemize skill to create a sword and slices one down. He's surprised to find that he feels absolutely nothing. His mind is completely undisturbed. More orcs charge, but to him, they're moving in extreme slow motion. He finds them pathetically slow and frail, and he starts taking them down with his bare hands. It's then that he has a profound realization. It's not that the orcs are weak or slow. It's that he is overwhelmingly, unbelievably strong and fast. The gap in power is so immense that his perception of time is completely different from theirs. He understands that what he's doing isn't even a fight. It's not a game. It is just simple, one-sided slaughter. After Lufus finishes slaughtering the orcs, Dina runs up to her all excited, telling her they got lucky. Lufus is confused and asks what she means by lucky, so Dina holds up a piece of meat and explains that it's the orc tenderloin. She says that if the tenderloin remains undamaged when an orc is killed, all of its vitality stays inside it, and when you eat it, it enhances your own vitality. The player behind Lufus immediately realizes she's talking about the buff item from the game that permanently raises max HP. Dina goes on to explain that since orcs are always fighting, there's only a 3% chance of getting an undamaged tenderloin. Lufus thinks it's interesting to hear the in-game drop rate explained as real-world lore and decides that from now on, they'll always aim to kill enemies without damaging the tenderloin. Dina promises to cook them up later so they'll be fit for Mistress Lufus to eat and then perform some kind of teleportation magic. Lufus is surprised and asks what she's doing, and Dina explains she's sending all the orc corpses back to their tower base to turn them into jerky later. Lufus is really impressed, thinking to herself that her advisor is actually pretty talented. With the battle over, they decide to go free the kidnapped village women. When they find the women, they're all safe, just a little tired and scared. Dina reports that none of them were defiled by the orcs, and it looks like they were treated with a lot of care. Lufus isn't surprised and says that this is natural because, according to the in-game lore, orcs are actually gentlemen who handle women with care, trying to win their affection instead of forcing themselves on them. Dina is shocked that creatures with pig faces could be so considerate. Lufus thinks that even if the lore is true, the women were still terrified of being kidnapped, so, in the end, humans and orcs can probably never live in peace. As she's thinking, she uses her alchemize skill to create a golem called Hrungnir's right arm to stand guard. Dina then offers to erase the women's memories of being kidnapped, and Lufus asks how much control she has over that magic. Dina casually says that if she wanted to, she could even implant false memories and personalities. Lufus is a bit creeped out by how casually she says this and asks if the treatment can be undone. Dina says it rarely ever comes undone, which Lufus correctly interprets as meaning it can be undone with the right opportunity. Lufus decides against it for now, saying it's not necessary. They return to the village, and the families are overjoyed to be reunited. The village chief thanks them and gives them their payment of 500 L. Lufus gives them the golem she created, telling them to use it as a guardian for the village, and the chief is so grateful he calls her a messenger from God, which makes Dina blush and say that's not true at all. As they're leaving, the villagers ask for their names. Lufus starts to say her real name, but Dina quickly covers her mouth and shouts that her name is Svalu. Lufus is annoyed and pinches her, asking what that was all about. Dina says she can't just go around using the name Lufus, and that Svalu is an alias. But Lufus yells at her for just rearranging the letters of her name. With money in their pockets and some orc tenderloin to boost their stats, they officially begin their journey to the city of Svel. Lufus's plan is to stop one of her former subordinates, Ares the Ram of the 12 Heavenly Stars, who has been repeatedly invading Svel. She also wants to investigate the surviving members of the 7 heroes who defeated her, starting with Megrez, who founded Svel. She suspects that some of them might be other players who were transported to this world just like her. As they travel, they see a strange light, and Dina explains that it's mana, a sign that the land is rich with it and that they're getting close to Svel. Soon, they see the city in the distance, a beautiful place surrounded by water, and Dina gets super excited. At the city gates, a guard asks for their pass, and Dina confidently hands one over. The guard checks it and sees they are registered as free traders named Dina and Svalu. He lets them pass, and Lufus internally panics, realizing the fake pass Dina must have created is somehow completely legitimate. Once inside, Dina explains that Svel was founded by the wise King Megrez, one of the 7 heroes, and is a major hub for mages and scholars because of its rich mana. The glow from the lake is actually pure mana. Lufus remembers the game lore that her race, the Heaven-Winged, don't like mana, but she finds that it doesn't bother her at all. In fact, she finds it novel and pleasant. Her first order of business is not to storm Megrez's castle, but to find a library. She explains to Dina that she knows too little about the 200 years she was sealed away and needs to catch up on history. They ask a nearby mercenary named Gantz for directions, and he's friendly enough to show them the way. Dina introduces herself and then introduces Lufus as her suspicious employer in a red cape named Svalu, which earns her another pinch from Lufus. Gantz laughs it off and leads them to a monorail that will take them to the east area where the libraries are. Lufus is surprised by the modern technology. Gantz mentions that the city isn't as populated as it used to be because of the constant attacks from Ares, but he says they don't need to worry because the entire lake surrounding the city is actually a massive water golem named Levia that Megrez created to act as its guardian deity. Lufus uses her appraisal skill and is impressed to see that Levia is level 500 with an outrageous amount of HP. They thank Gantz and take the monorail to the library. Inside, Lufus is shocked to see the selection of books. Alongside books praising the 7 heroes, there are many books critical of them, with titles like The Glory and Foolishness of the 7 Heroes and Kill the 7 Heroes, Humanity's Biggest Mistake. She finds it bizarre that Megrez, one of the heroes, would allow such treasonous books in his own nation. Dina explains that he doesn't run an oppressive government and that, over time, Lufus's reputation has actually improved. The fear people felt has faded, and now many believe that the world was better off under her rule, especially since the devil folk are now a huge threat. Lufus starts reading and learns the history of the past 200 years. After she was defeated, the devil folk who had been hiding in fear of her power immediately went on the offensive. The 7 heroes tried to fight them but were defeated, and now humanity's territory is steadily shrinking. The world is on the brink of ruin, and they have no way to fight back. Lufus is stunned. She knew things were bad, but she didn't realize humanity was on the verge of extinction. Just as she finishes her research, a massive earthquake shakes the entire city. Lufus immediately recognizes the feeling. It's not a natural disaster, but a skill that only one being has, Ares. She realizes he's attacking the city right now. Dina says they should take the monorail to the border, but Lufus says that's too slow. Instead, she uses alchemies to create a futuristic flying vehicle and tells Dina to get on. As they fly towards the border, Lufus is deeply confused. The Ares she remembers from the game was a gentle, peace-loving rainbow sheep who hated conflict. She can't understand why he would be attacking a city. Then, a memory that isn't hers flashes in her mind, an image of a small crying sheep. She understands now that Ares is attacking because she, his master, was struck down by the heroes. He's not invading, he's getting revenge. Realizing her little crybaby sheep is in pain, she tells Dina to hurry as they speed towards the battle. A flashback shows a mysterious person finding a legendary crying rainbow sheep, a monster said to be born only once every 500 years. The figure tells the sheep that crying is useless and that if it's going to grieve its own weakness, it should fight back against its enemies instead. The sheep responds with a determined bleat, and the figure is pleased, telling it to come with them. They admit they aren't at full strength yet, but will grow stronger and eventually conquer the entire world. The sheep will be their first companion. The figure asks for its name, then decides to name it Ares, telling it to grow strong alongside them. Back in the present, the battle for Svel has begun. Soldiers are in chaos as Ares' monster army launches an all-out assault. They're completely overwhelmed, trying desperately to hold the line until the main forces arrive. Gantz is fighting on the front lines, cutting down monsters, but there's just no end to them. They're about to break through the border when suddenly a massive wave of water appears. It's Levia, the city's guardian deity, and with her is Megrez, one of the 7 heroes. Megrez tells his soldiers they've done well, and that he and Levia will now protect the country. Levia unleashes her power, wiping out a huge portion of the monster army in a single terrifying attack. Watching from above, Lufus and Dina are impressed. Lufus thinks it's splendid and is glad to see Gantz is safe. Dina thinks Levia might actually be able to defeat Ares, especially since Ares is a fire element monster and is at a disadvantage against water. Plus, Megrez is there to support Levia. Lufus decides to check Megrez's status. She's confused because they're the same level, so she shouldn't be able to see his stats, but then she notices he's afflicted with a strange status ailment called Mark of the Vanquished. His level has been knocked down to 500. Dina explains there were rumors that the 7 heroes were cursed by the Devil King when they were defeated, leaving them unable to use over half of their true power. Lufus realizes this is a huge problem. If Megrez is weakened by a curse, he can't create another golem as powerful as Levia, which means the water golem is truly Svel's last line of defense. Just then, Ares himself appears, a massive rainbow sheep radiating intense heat. Levia prepares for a direct assault, knowing she has the advantage. Ares unleashes a powerful fire attack, but he misses Levia completely. Lufus knows he didn't miss, he was aiming for something else. The blast hits the ground behind them, causing a massive explosion. Levia counters with a tidal wave, but Ares, despite his enormous size, leaps clean over the massive wall of water. The soldiers are shocked. Ares attacks again, but some kind of shield, a memento from Lufus, blocks the attack. The soldiers start cheering, thinking they can actually win this fight. Dina asks Lufus for her assessment. Lufus says that in this battle alone, Levia will win, but her max HP has been shaved down. In the long run, she'll lose. She realizes Ares never intended to win this fight from the start. He was pretending to launch a final assault as a ploy to weaken Levia through a war of attrition. The monsters he brought were clearly too weak and were just a decoy. Lufus deduces that Ares plans to retreat soon, knowing that Megrez and Levia can't pursue him because they are guardians who would never leave the nation vulnerable to a follow-up attack. He's grown incredibly cunning. Dina notes that he learned from the best, and Lufus admits she often used cunning tactics to make up for her lower stats. Still, she thinks Ares is being a bit too clever and that it'll be dangerous if he weakens Levia any further. She tells Dina they're going in. Lufus leaps from their flying platform, feeling a bit guilty for kicking her loyal retainer while he's working so hard for her sake. As she lands, she shouts at Ares, telling him she doesn't recall asking him to seek revenge and to cool his head. Everyone on the ground is stunned by her sudden appearance and power. Megrez asks who on earth she is. Lufus says she'll answer later since there are too many eyes on them now, and that she'll take on Ares. She tells Dina to follow with teleportation later. As she's about to leave, Megrez stops her. He says her voice and manner of speech are familiar and that if she is who he thinks she is, then she needs to be careful because someone is pulling the strings and manipulating Ares' thirst for revenge. Lufus coolly asks who he thinks he's speaking to, but then gratefully accepts the warning since it comes from an old friend. She turns to face Ares, who is in total shock. He actually speaks, asking who she is. Lufus is surprised he can talk now. In the game, all he could say was, Bay. Ares is in complete disbelief, yelling that Lady Lufus died and that she must be a trickster trying to deceive him. Lufus assures him she is no illusion or ghost. She is, without a doubt, Lufus Mafa'al. She challenges him, telling him to come test her for himself and see how much he's grown over the past 200 years. She is feeling an incredible sense of elation, excited for her first proper battle since coming to this world. Ares lets out a mighty "Bah!" and charges. But instead of fighting back, Lufus just smiles, calling him just as needy as he was 2 centuries ago and opening her arms for a hug. She effortlessly catches the giant charging sheep, calls him adorable, and starts petting his chin. Ares unleashes his strongest flames directly onto her, engulfing her completely. When the fire clears, Lufus is completely unharmed, looking bored. She asks him if he still doubts her. Overwhelmed, Ares transforms from a giant sheep into his human form, a young, beautiful boy, and collapses into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. He cries for 20 minutes straight, apologizing over and over. Lufus comforts him, patting his head and gently teasing him for still being a crybaby after 200 years. She checks his status and sees his level is the same as it was in the game, confirming that companion monsters can't exceed their owner's level, though his abilities have improved significantly. She realizes he's been working hard all this time. She tells him that he's her first stop on her journey to reclaim the 12 heavenly stars, and that he's to come with her without another word. She won't accept any objections. A notification appears. Arise has joined your party. Ares, overjoyed, says he's happy to be her first companion once again and promises to do his best. Lufus smiles and agrees. Then Ares turns to Dina and politely introduces himself, calling her an unfamiliar lady. Dina is shocked that he doesn't remember her after all the time they spent together in Mafawal Tower. Ares thinks hard and then exclaims that he remembers her. She was the person that blended into the background. Dina is furious at being called background scenery. Ares then adds that he's surprised she can move from that spot and that he didn't know she could talk. Dina completely loses it, screaming about how she's not furniture. Lufus tells Ares not to bully Dina, but he insists he's not bullying her. He's just saying what he was honestly thinking, which makes Dina even more furious. A final flashback shows the game designers arguing over Ares' human form. Someone suggests making him a pretty girl, but another points out that Ares is male. The first person just yells that this is the age of femboys, and so Ares' human form was officially canonized as a femboy. Lufus asks Ares, who was pulling the strings behind the scenes, and he confesses that he couldn't forgive the humans and the 7 heroes for betraying her. He says she was trying to create a world free from the fear of devil folk, but humanity just trampled on her ideals. He couldn't stand seeing those traitors being hailed as heroes while living carefree lives, especially since he owes Lufus his very life. Lufus's internal thought is that she knew his motive was devotion to her, but she still senses that someone else manipulated his thirst for revenge. She tells Ares that she doesn't desire revenge, but is happy he felt so strongly for her. Because of that, she can't forgive whoever manipulated those feelings and asks him who deceived him. The scene then cuts to Geel Volcano, where the real mastermind, a devilfolk luminary named Mars, is rallying his army of level 80+ monsters. He gloats that with Levia weakened, they can finally conquer Spell. He reveals that it was all worth it, spending years and years stoking Ares' desire for vengeance. He finds it absolutely delightful that one of Lufus's own 12 heavenly stars is the one backing humanity into a corner. Suddenly, he sees Lufus and Ares appear. He's confused about who the woman with Ares is, but seeing her blue skin, he assumes she's just another devilfolk, and that they were the ones manipulating Ares all along. He confronts Ares, asking what happened to his resentment towards humans and his plan to get revenge for his master. Ares declares that while he still can't forgive the humans and hates the 7 heroes to death, he realizes that his revenge wouldn't make Lady Lufus happy. It would only please the devilfolk. He says that wasn't Lufus's ideal, and he knew it from the start, so he won't waver anymore and will stop Mars right here. Mars isn't surprised and says he thought this day might come, since Ares hesitated for years instead of just destroying Spell when he had the chance. He says Ares was their trump card against Levia and has now served his purpose, but he won't be allowed to live after turning on the devilfolk. He prepares to kill Ares himself, but Lufus steps in. She tells Ares to stand back and leave this to her, since he's still injured from their battle. Mars, completely underestimating her, asks who she is and boasts that it was a foolish mistake to come here. He then launches into an incredibly long-winded speech, introducing his ultimate secret art, the Ice Prison Hellfire Instantaneous Phantasmal Devil Sword. He goes on and on about his twin swords of hellfire and freezing ice, how one will freeze you and the other will burn you to ashes, and how his victims will thank him for the mercy of a quick death. After this whole dramatic performance, he finally shouts that it's curtain call. Luffy just looks bored and says, "Shut up," before instantly defeating him. As Mars is blown away, he finally sees her black wings and blonde hair and realizes with horror that it's Luffy. Luffy casually comments on how weak the so-called mastermind was. Ares confirms he was Mars, one of the Devilfolk's 7 luminaries. Dina explains the luminaries are the 7 great generals of the Devilfolk, but Luffy is unimpressed, thinking he wasn't even over level 300. She concludes that the standards of the Devilfolk have really declined and wonders if only the Devil King and her own 12 heavenly stars are strong enough to fight her now. Ares points out that Luffy didn't kill the monsters, and she explains they were just being manipulated. To prevent them from attacking people again, she uses her capture skill, turning the entire monster army into her minions in a single moment. She then orders them all to return to their homes and not attack anyone without cause before dismissing them. With the situation resolved, they meet with Megrez. He asks what happened to the monsters, and Luffy tells him they're under her command now. Megrez asks her to come with him to talk privately. Luffy internally notes that she remembers Megrez as a top player from the game she used to hunt with, but she wonders if this is the same person. Megrez leads her to where Svel's upper echelon is gathered, and they all put on a fake show of being worried about him. Luffy can see right through it, realizing they only care about their own safety. Megrez tells her that this is the proof of his mistake. The leaders who are supposed to protect the people only think about protecting themselves. Away from everyone, he asks to see her face, and when she reveals herself, he confirms it's Luffy. But he's become weak and dejected, and Luffy realizes this isn't the player she knew, feeling a bit alone in this world. Megrez asks why she has returned, wondering if she's here to laugh at how far they've fallen. Luffy explains her return was an accident, a mistake in summoning. She then pieces together his problem, noticing books in his library that criticize the 7 heroes. She deduces that he feels guilty for betraying her and allowing the Devilfolk to run rampant, so he's being crushed by self-reproach. The praise and admiration of the people feel like a sharp blade to him. Luffy tells him to stop being so troublesome and to take pride in his victory over a powerful foe. Megrez asks if she doesn't hate him for ruining her ambitions, but Luffy explains that if her followers rose against her, it just means she was lacking as a leader, so she has no reason to hate them. She tells him to cease blaming himself and stand proud like the hero he is. This triggers a flashback to 200 years ago, where a passionate young Megrez shared his dream of building a great nation for elves, and Luffy declared her even bigger dream of world conquest, to create a utopia free from Devilfolk. Back in the present, a grateful Megrez thanks her. Luffy then fully heals Leviah, restoring her max HP, which Megrez was unable to do. He asks about her plans, and she says she'll continue to reclaim the 12 heavenly stars. Megrez tells her the next one, Libra of the Scales, is at the grave of the Black-Winged King, a massive tomb built by her admirers. All of Luffy's old treasures and legendary equipment are stored there, and Libra has become a killing machine who guards the top floor relentlessly. People risk fighting her because legendary weapons are now incredibly rare. Megrez shamefully asks if, after she recovers Libra, she could leave some of the unused equipment for them, and Luffy agrees it's a reasonable request. Before they leave, Megrez gives her a new outfit and an item to hide her wings. Ares rudely tells Megrez he never wants to see him again, but Luffy goes to say a proper farewell to Gantz. Gantz is stunned to see her true, beautiful female form, having only known her as the male adventurer, Svalu. After a quick goodbye, he almost asks if she's Lu. Is Idu Sao, but dismisses the thought as impossible. Finally, the scene cuts back to the defeated Mars. As he lies broken, recognizing that Luffy Mafile has returned, a mysterious new figure appears. The figure tells him that performers who have played their part should make a clean exit, calls him a pathetic little puppet whose role is over, and coldly eliminates him. The group sets their sights on their next objective, Libra of the Scales, who is located at the grave of the Black-Winged King, a destination that's a whopping 500 kilometers away. That's a huge distance, and while Lufus is fine with walking, Dina immediately protests that not everyone is a superhuman like her, and walking is exhausting. She comes up with a proposal to create a golem that can transport them around. Lufus points out they have her teleportation magic, but then remembers that they didn't even use a carriage to get to Svel. She explains that teleportation magic is really for personal use, and to teleport another living creature, you need their consent, or to knock them unconscious. The problem is that even a tiny bit of refusal in their heart can make the spell fail, which is super scary, so it's just a big hassle. Dina gets even more ambitious and suggests that while they're at it, the golem should have a bath and a place to sleep so they don't have to camp outside. Lufus is a bit skeptical about what kind of golem that would be, but she agrees to give it a try. With a cry of "Alchemize!" the golem is created. Inside, they find incredibly soft and fluffy beds. Ares dramatically declares he's unfit to be a bride now, and Lufus just bluntly reminds him that he's a man. With that settled, they decide the golem needs a name. Dina thinks a chic name that's not too pretentious would be good, while another companion thinks it should be easy to remember. Lufus declares its name will be Tanaka, which is followed by a ridiculous TV commercial-style presentation for the moving golem. The ad promises Tanaka can take you to beaches, cities, and mountains, and it even comes with a status card showing it's an artificial life form. Lufus then commands Tanaka to drive them to the grave of the black-winged king, and it responds with a simple, "Yes, boss." The group finds traveling in Tanaka to be an absolute breeze and super comfortable. After a while, they decide to stop for the night and have Tanaka park in a decent spot. As soon as they get out, Dina sniffs the air and gets incredibly excited, shouting that there's a hot spring. Lufus points out that they already made a bath inside Tanaka, but Dina insists that a natural hot spring is a completely different matter and practically drags her along. She tells Ares he can go later since he's a man. As they prepare to get in, Dina stops Lufus, scolding her for planning to get in the water without tying up her long hair. She explains that it's bad manners because her shed hair would float on the surface and make the water look dirty for the next person. Lufus admits she has a point, and Dina offers to tie it up for her. Lufus, having an internal thought about not wanting to see Dina's naked body despite her own female form, tells Dina to stay put and that she'll come to her. Dina comments on how pretty Lufus's hair is, and notes that such long hair must lead to stiff shoulders. After tying it up, she encourages Lufus to relax and enjoy the hot spring, since it's been a while since she could properly stretch her wings. The water feels amazing, but Dina notices her legs are a bit swollen from sitting in Tanaka all day, though Lufus feels nothing. Dina then spots some rare creatures called adaptive frogs and points them out to Lufus. She explains that the pink one is female and the green ones are male, but the really mysterious thing is that when there are too many males, some of them will change their sex to female so they can mate with the extras. She marvels at how they used to be male, but their feelings change and they fall in love with other males. Lufus seems to have some kind of reaction to this, and just then they hear a frog yelling at Ares to never come back again. Lufus decides it's time to get out of the water, and they let Ares know it's his turn. They finally arrive at the grave of the black-winged king, which is so excessively huge that a whole village has sprung up around it. Dina explains that hunters and adventurers came to conquer the grave, which attracted merchants, and it just grew into a tourist spot. Ares is absolutely livid, declaring it outrageous that these fools are trying to ransack Lufus's grave, and he prepares to attack them. Lufus immediately stops her stupid ram, telling him there's no need to cause a commotion. She reminds him that since she's standing right there, it's obviously not her real grave, so she doesn't care if people try to ransack an unimportant place. She internally notes how crazy he gets when it comes to her, and wonders if all the 12 heavenly stars are like this. Their attention is drawn to a crowd, and they ask what's going on. A man explains that a special reconnaissance team of 50 powerful men went into the grave 2 months ago and were on the verge of conquering the top floor, but they missed their daily check-in. Realizing Libra must be on the highest floor, Lufus decides they need to retrieve her fast to prevent more casualties. As they head in, the man tries to warn them that if the special team struggled, 3 of them don't stand a chance. Lufus simply tells him they appreciate his concern, but it's unfounded, and there will be no more deaths on their watch. Inside, they're met by golems, which Dina recognizes as the mass-produced models Lufus created for the final battle against the 7 heroes. Lufus notes they have no intent to attack her or Ares, as her creations are designed to distinguish friend from foe and still recognize her as their master, even after 200 years. But then, for some reason, the golems suddenly turn and attack only Dina. Ares jokes that her presence must be so faint that even the golems forgot her. Just as Lufus prepares to save her, another group of adventurers calling themselves Hawkeye jumps in to protect Dina. Lufus sees that their coordination isn't bad, but they're too weak and will be killed before they can defeat the golem. She orders Ares to assist them. Ares effortlessly destroys the golem, leaving the adventurers in complete awe. One of them, Jean, excitedly approaches Ares, calling him a young lady and asking how he did that. Lufus has to intervene, telling the adventurers to calm down and informing them that Ares is a man. Much to their shock, the party introduces themselves: Jean the warrior, Nick the light warrior, Richard the heavy warrior, and Shu the archer. Lufus's group gives their cover story as free traders and rangers. Both groups notice how terribly unbalanced the other's party is, with Hawkeye being all frontliners and Lufus's group pretending to be all rangers. Jean calls them muscleheads for relying on high levels, which annoys Lufus so much she threatens to alchemize a giant boomerang and stick it in his head. Believing Lufus's party is lacking fighters, Hawkeye offers to act as their bodyguards. To Dina's complete surprise, Lufus immediately agrees. She later privately tells Dina that they should use them while they can, revealing a rather nasty streak. She plans to just support them enough so it doesn't seem unnatural. As they proceed deeper, the scene cuts to the top floor where the last remnants of another party face Libra of the Scales. They are determined to bring back the weapons cache for the future of humanity. Libra detects them, warning them to leave within 10 seconds or be eliminated. The adventurers desperately try to explain that they aren't there to fight, but need the legacy of the Black-Winged King to save the world from the Devilfolk. But Libra's programming simply identifies them as enemies trying to steal her master's treasures. Ignoring their pleas, her countdown finishes, and she announces that their actions comply with the causes for elimination. She commences the elimination sequence, activating her ultimate weapon, Brachium.